Are you going to ask me the questions?
Yeah, I'm going to. So, just for the record, could you give me your name, your date of birth, and where you were born?
James Conti. I was born in June of 1927. The president at that time was Calvin Coolidge.
And where were you born?
Where?
Yeah.
I was born in Jamestown, New York.
So, what was your life like before you entered the armed services?
Before I went in the armed services, I went through the Depression. By 1932, the Depression was in full bloom. Things were very difficult, and there was very little work, and we had a difficult time making a living. After that, things started getting better around 1935, and Depression, and then that's when things start stirring up in Europe. Mussolini invaded Ethiopia in 1937, and after that, Hitler, who had been gaining power in Europe, invaded Czechoslovakia, had a lot of putsches in Germany, and finally in 1941, World War II broke out. For us, we entered it in 1941 when the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. At that time, I was in junior high school, and listened to Roosevelt's speech and declaration of war on the Japanese, and then continued on through high school. On my graduation from high school, I went into the Coast Guard. I was stationed for boot camp in Brooklyn, New York. Spent 3 months there, and then was shipped out to Charleston, South Carolina, where I was assigned to the captain of the port. And our responsibilities there was to load ships with supplies, food supplies, munitions, and so on, because the war in Japan was still going on. And then I was in the Coast Guard until July of 1946, when I got discharged and came back home.
When did you exactly enlist in the Coast Guard?
Pardon?
When did you enlist in the Coast Guard to begin with?
I enlisted in the Coast Guard in 1945.
Why did you choose to go into the Coast Guard instead of the Army or the Air Force or the Navy or something like that?
Because I wanted to get into the Navy at that time, and the Navy had their quota filled, so I thought the next best place would be the Coast Guard.
So what sort of things did you do in boot camp and training and that sort of stuff?
Boot camp, we were training in Brooklyn, and we did a lot of water activities. We'd go out in huge rowboats out into the ocean and row them and practice on rescue skills. Also, we practiced jumping from ships 30 or 40 feet high into the water. And regular boot camp activity, marching, gun drills, regular ship activity like night vision training, seeking ships out at sea at night in the dark, getting your eyes accustomed to them. And then, and that went on for about 2 months.
What was just an average day in the life for you? Just an average day in the Coast Guard. What did you do?
Oh, you'd get up in the morning about 5 o'clock, get dressed and have breakfast, chow. And then you train either march or run or do gunnery activity, standing by while the larger guns were shot, like the cannon and so on, and assisting in that activity. And then that would go on all day. We'd have chow at noon, and then in the afternoon we'd continue. Did a lot of marching, and then the day would end roughly around 5 o'clock, and we'd have the rest of the day to have dinner, hang around a while, and then hit the sack about 10 o'clock.
Was there any specific ship that you served on while you were in the Coast Guard, or
I was on a ship.
did you have to adapt to like being on boats?
Did I what?
Did you work with boats and go out on the water at all?
Just rescue boats. The Coast Guard was involved in a lot of air-sea rescue at that time, and we had to row out to help rescue missions.
Did you have any trouble just getting adapted to boats, getting your sea legs?
Did I what?
Did you have any trouble like adapting to boats or getting your sea legs or something like that?
No.
Did you have any first-hand experience with like a U-boat or something hostile or anything like that?
U-boats?
Yeah.
No.
So after you left the Coast Guard, after you were decommissioned, what did you do before the Korean War? What were you up to?
After I left the Coast Guard, I didn't do anything for about a year or two. Then in 1947, I took advantage of the GI Bill of Rights, went to college, working on my master's degree, and went there for 3 years. Then in 1950, I was called back and drafted into the Korean War. And when I got drafted in the war, I was stationed at Fort Dix in New Jersey and was there for about 3 months. After that, we got shipped to Georgia, Fort Benning, and I was there for about another 2 months, and got trained in the medical corps. And a couple of months after that, we shipped out to Germany, and I was in what was called a clearing company. And do you ever see M.A.S.H?
Yeah, that was a good show.
M.A.S.H is a mobile RV hospital unit, and our company, the clearing company, is ahead of M.A.S.H on the lines with the getting the wounded right at the lines, and we'd set up field hospitals out there, which were huge tents, bigger than this house, and we'd take care of people who got wounded or got hurt. It was mostly training then, and I was in a town called, it's near Frankfurt, Germany, a town called Darmstadt, and was there for almost a year, and we did a lot of training there. I was the training and information NCO at that time, and I set up training programs for the troops. Each week I'd have a schedule of what they were going to do, like exercises, field training, bivouacking, maneuvering, and things such as that. And then after about a year there, our unit got transferred to another place in Germany called M.A.S.H. And I did about the same thing there. I was in charge of training and trained recruits. These are mostly seasoned soldiers that in the medical care in assisting physicians, and we're actually working like nurses out in the field. We bivouacked on the field during the winter a lot in the snow, and that was mostly at the training. And then stayed in Germany until 1952. They came back to the United States, and at that time I finished my college, and then after I finished my bachelor's degree, I went to the University of Buffalo, got my master's degree, and then after that I did graduate work at Cornell and University of Pennsylvania.
What persuaded you to become a medic instead of just going back into the Coast Guard?
I don't really know. When I was in college, I initially was a biology major, and I thought it'd be interesting to get into the medical end of it. And they were happy to get me because I had a biology background, and I could fit right into what they were doing at the time.
When you were in Germany, just what were your interactions with the German people like when you were there?
I had a lot of interaction with them. In fact, I learned to speak German. A young boy, about 4 years old, taught me how to speak German. And another German teacher that taught our classes asked me one day if I wanted to see what a school was like. So I said yes, and we went to one of the schools, which was called the Gymnasium. It was where the upper level students went. We went into class, and they were reading poems. You ever heard of the German poet Goethe?
Seems familiar, yeah.
Reading poems from Goethe in German. So the teacher said, "Would you like to hear them do it in English?" I said, "No, that'd be too much trouble." No, once she said, "Do it in English," just flipped right out and I went right into English and translated all the poems, read the poems in English. And really amazed me. I think they were 8th graders.
Wow.
And I did a lot with a lot of traveling around Germany, different towns. Went to the Nuremberg, where
A very good sense of humor too, which I like.
a lot of people got killed, a lot of,
Great sense of humor.
and then the
So, like when we get together.
ovens and another place where people were burned and gassed. It was very touching.
Did you ever come across anybody who was like angry at you for being an American, kind of winning
I've
the
come
war?
across,
Someone who was angry, still angry at the Americans for winning the war, kind of.
not really.
Like,
We had a lot of Germans working for us in our concern, which was the camp where we were stationed. And they worked pretty closely with us. I'm sure there were people that resented us, but I didn't come across them very much.
do you just have any fun stories that you wanted to tell from when you were in the Coast Guard or in Germany? Something that you just want to talk about?
I think what I liked about Germany is a lot of days we would not have very much to do, so we'd start walking through the woods, and they kept the woods immaculate, clean. We'd walk, and every few miles we'd come to a town, and whenever we came to a town, there was a guest house, which is like a bar, and we'd go in there, and they'd have these huge loaves of bread with some of their wurst and lunch meats, and their good beer, and we'd walk out there and have a good lunch, good bottle of beer, and then hike back again. And doing that, we met a lot of people. We would talk to a lot of people. Went past a lot of farms, and they were still not really up to date in their farming at that time, but it's improved since.
So, when you went back to get your major, what did you do after that?
After I got my master's,
After you came back and got your master's?
I taught school. Taught school for 15 years in Jamestown. And I also coached football at that time. Then I became very active in the teachers union. And I was president of the teacher union in Jamestown. And then I became more active and became president of the New York State Teachers Association. I was the vice president of that. And then some years after that, they asked me to go on staff, and I became the director of staff for Western New York. We had our office in Williamsville, had about 15 staff members, and I directed them. And what they did was negotiated contracts for the teacher unions of Western New York. See, what happened in 1967, there was a law passed called the Taylor Law, which gave public employees the right to collectively bargain with their employers. And then after that, after I was in charge of the Buffalo office, they asked me to come to Albany to become the director of operations for the New York State United Teachers, which is a state teachers union. I had a staff of about 200 people and directed them all over the state. We had 16 offices around the state with a person in charge of each office. And I did that until I retired. You see, I missed when I was talking about the Depression in 1935. Private employees got the right to bargain collectively with their employer. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, the Wagner Law, National Labor Relations Act.
I don't think I have.
Yeah.
I don't think I have.
That was for private employees. Then in 1967, public employees got it. And that's the way teacher unions and teachers got a little, came up on the wage scale and started making some money. When I first started teaching, I made $2,500 a year, plus they gave me $50 a year to coach football. That's a real big salary.
So how would you say just your time in the Coast Guard and your time as a medic, how has that affected you and your life as a whole?
Coast Guard had taught me a lot of responsibility, and same with the medics. I learned a lot of responsibility, and learned to stay with the thing, stay with the job. Hard to say, but I think it has affected my whole life. And after that, the work with the teacher unions affected my life tremendously, because I had a lot of contact with different people, had a lot of contact with government officials. At one point, when I did graduate work at Cornell, it was during the Vietnam War, and after I did the graduate work, a few of us got called to Washington to meet with the Secretary of State, Dean Rusk, and he was seeking our advice on the war in Vietnam, and we talked with him. And at that time, when we met with him, President Johnson came in and sat with us and talked with us at that time. And some of the things we said at that time had an impact on him. Not a great impact, but it had an impact. And it made you feel as though you were a part of something big that was happening, and that you could contribute to it also.
Wow. So have you been able to keep in touch with any of your old friends from the service through the VFW or something like that?
I belong to the American Legion, but I don't keep in touch with, except the ones that I grew up with that are still living. Had a couple friends that got killed in World War II, and several of them that lived, I kept in contact with them.
That's nice. Is there anything you'd want to say just to wrap up about your experiences?
Anyone?
Anything you'd just like to say to wrap up, just sum up what you did? Just to...
I think I want to say is I've lived a long life, seen a lot of changes, and I'm amazed at the way the world has come over all these years. And I'm sure you're going to see a lot more changes, and you'll be telling somebody your story when you get to be my age.
Just hoping. I think that's that.